I've got to say, upscaling Final Styricum Shower was one of the most rewarding video projects for me because I got to do a lot of things that sound really stupid, but they worked well and I'm happy with the result. The original video was 720p, 25 FPS, and it has resampling errors which cause ghostly images around anything moving. That's a pretty tough thing to work with. So for this video, I wanted to increase the resolution, to up the frame rate, and somehow to hide these resampling errors. Normally I'd upscale the video before converting the frame rate, because I figure it helps to make new frames if the existing ones are as detailed as possible. But I realised this would take too long with how I wanted to approach this project, so I settled on a compromise. I would start by upscaling this project to 1080p, then I'd convert the frame rate, and then I'd upscale that to 4K. So I upscaled the video at 720p, 540p and 360p and combined the results, using my eyes to decide which combination looked best. I also find that combining multiple different upscales can sometimes cut down on that shimmery, blotchy upscaled look. Now armed with a full 1080p video file, I moved to the frame rate conversion. This is where you get the computer to fill in the gaps between the frames to make it look like a higher frame rate. Obviously you can't get new frames for free. It can only work with the frames either side of it. If you're wondering how good this approach can be, the answer is, how long do you have? Actually, that's a question. But frame rate conversion takes time. The fastest is SVP, a lovely little program that can convert videos to 60 FPS or more in real time. I've been having trouble getting this to work recently, but maybe I should, because if the results are good enough then I might just use this instead of my other methods. The extreme opposite of this is Dane, which is the best quality, as you all seem to know already. But can you please stop suggesting that I use it, because it's clear you haven't, otherwise you'd know that in its alpha state it's horrible to use because it runs out of RAM, looks bad where its segments meet, and, the main thing, it's very, 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 very slow. I calculated this. To frame rate convert this video the way I want to at 720p using the program, it would have taken over a week. Completely unfeasible for this project, but I will be covering it at a later date. I chose to use Twixtor, which is somewhere in the middle of these two approaches. It takes time to convert frame rates, but not as much as DAIN does, and the result is better than SVP, but nowhere near as fast. And the biggest benefit? I'm familiar with it and know how it works. Using it, it took me 4 hours to convert this 4-minute project to 200 FPS. Normally for a 25 FPS video I'd double it to 50 and be done with it, because 60 is just horrible to do mathematically. But with this video, there are already resampling errors. These ghostly images are already embedded into the video. You can't get rid of these now. And worse still, they'll actually get in the way of frame rate conversion methods. I'm sure you're all gagging to tell me how I should have gone about removing these artifacts. Normally I just ignore this and do it my own way, but having seen how the comments section got totally derailed last time from all of the inappropriate suggestions, I'll show you why your method won't work. Option 1. Dane. No, it's way too slow. Plus, resampling errors will prevent it from doing a good job. Option 2. Motion blur. No, again, the resampling errors will confuse it, and it ends up blurring these errors in a really odd way. What is this, Donnie Darko? Option 3. Twixtor and blur. No, that's just like blur but worse. And now for my option. Twixtor works by smushing the frames. Not always the most elegant solution. Certainly not as clever as AI conversion. But I figured it would smush into and out of these resampling errors, which in this case I felt would work in my favour. Resampling is where it shows more than one picture in a single image, hence the ghostly effect. And while that's the cause of my problems, I thought it might also be the solution. At a high enough frame rate, like say 200, this will result in 4 images for each frame of the video, which I felt would be enough to make it look less like ghosting and more like motion blur. And here's the result. And I'm happy with it, so let's move on. I then upscaled this 1080p 50 FPS project to 4K and added perhaps too much sharpening to the result. But I'm using this upscaling phase I'm going through as a bit of a learning experience, to see what works and what doesn't, and hopefully to inform you without you having to go through the same pain and suffering as I have. And you know what? I'm actually really happy with how this video turned out. The image can look overly sharp and harsh. You can definitely tell I've done something to it, but I think you'll agree it doesn't look bad, and has certainly helped to modernise a video that's well over a decade old, and from another era. God, I miss the days when all my videos had proper music. Now for a few comparisons. In this example, The motion blur on the feet doesn't look any better, and I'm not sure why this is, but since the motion's so fast and over so quickly, I'm not going to bother investigating, because frankly I'm even more sick of this upscaling project than you are now. But you can see a lot more definition on the concrete, and since this is a still camera shot, this quality will remain until the next sequence, so as far as I see it, it's extra detail but without any of the downsides. This next example brilliantly shows what I hope to achieve with my framerate conversion. It disguises the resampling as motion blur quite nicely. And the same in this next comparison. Something I've learned from this is that I actually hate motion blur and would only want this effect to be this strong if it's to mask an underlying problem, like resampling. You can easily make out the over-sharpening on the cables and the pastel-y, artificial look of the upscaling when there isn't much detail in the original. But looking at the image as a whole, upscaling has effectively brought the whole scene into focus, ripping it out of the 720p era, kicking and screaming. And the same in this image. Everything's got sharp edges, which is my favourite thing about higher resolutions. However, it does make this tree look even more aliased. Half the twigs are floating in the air. But there's a solution. If I shrink this image down enough that it becomes a pixelated mess, and then upscale that, it nicely joins the twigs together in a more convincing fashion. In fact, it does the same on the power lines, and the train station structure in general. The downside is that it removes any clarity from the textures. The resulting image is like it's had a paint effect applied to it. But I could leave the smoother looking tree and use the original upscale for the rest of the image. Win-win? Frankly, I can't be bothered with this amount of manual adjustments with this project. But if you're looking to do the same in your videos, this is an option to try and get the best, or worst, of both worlds. Another excellent example of blurry but coherent versus clear but messy. I might not like motion blur, but I can't fault the outcome on the character models in this image. You might almost forget that the original was plagued with resampling errors. Just look at this, before and after upscaling. In fact, I have nothing more to add on these next few images, so I'll just show them before and after. Actually, I'll try anti-aliasing the trees again here. As if you didn't know already, upscaling is a compromise. You gain one thing at the cost of another. And the same when it comes to smoothing out these tree branches. I spot some text. Let's zoom in on this and see how it replaces the letters with gobbledygook. Since the original text was German, it's not like it's any less coherent now, is it? Upscaling produces a lovely, convincing high-res concrete texture on this pillar. This is one scene where I agree the after image has less detail, which I blame on the moving camera shot combined with the motion blur. Remember, I applied this before I upscaled, and this example demonstrates why you shouldn't do that, because by the time you're upscaling, you're merely upscaling the framerate conversion artifacts. And also you have less detail to work with because I was using lossy video codecs. But upping the contrast hides the problems with the dark spots somewhat. And we'll end it on an explosion. Because why not? And I redid the writing in this video because it was easy enough to do, and my original choice of words would have resulted in many questions that, honestly, I don't even have the answers to anymore. Better to use this as an opportunity to set the record straight, and to publish this video as though it isn't just an early draft, and instead as though it was going to be seen by an audience. Also, what on earth did I do to the credits in the original? I seriously messed up the text's kerning, so I redid that as well, and discovered just how hard it is to make a scrolling credit screen in Vegas. Some of these names I remember so well, others I've totally forgotten about. And that concludes another comparison video. Almost there now.